Greetings to all of our friends around the world, and welcome once again to Kourou, the home of the Ariane space family, for tonight's broadcast of Ariane space flight number 239. We're very glad you all could be with us for the mission tonight. A double launch today. We're orbiting two satellites for some very old friends, both on the satellite operator side as well as on the satellite builder side. And to get us underway, we go first for some opening words to Ariane Space Chief Executive Stéphane Israël.
Dear customers and partners, ladies and gentlemen, Ariane Space is delighted to welcome you from the CSG for this new Ariane 5 mission, the fifth of the year with our heavyweight vehicle. For this mission, we are going to launch two key satellites for our customers and partners. Intelsat 37E for the American operator Intelsat. The satellite has been manufactured by our long-standing partner Boeing Space Systems. BSAT-4A for the Japanese operator BSAT. The payload has been built by another long-lasting partner, Space Systems Loral. Thanks to Intelsat and BSAT for your trust. Ariane 5 is now on the launch pad after having been transferred yesterday. All the operations linked to the final countdown went well, so we should be in a position to launch at 9:51 p.m., the time of the opening of the launch window, which will last 33 minutes. The overall performance to GTO required for this launch is 10 tons 838 kilo. As you know, the liftoff occurs 7 seconds after the H0 at the initiation of the boosters. Ariane 5 will then head towards the east to separate the satellites on an elliptical orbit inclined at 6 degrees with respect to the equatorial plane. The perigee altitude will be 250 kilometers and the apogee altitude will be 35,706 kilometers. Intelsat 37E will separate first 29 minutes and 50 seconds after liftoff. BSAT-4A will then separate 17 minutes and 25 seconds later. Our launch is imminent. Go Ariane 5, go Intelsat 37E and BSAT-4A, and of course, enjoy the show.
Stéphane saying 9:51 p.m. He, of course, meant universal time. Local time, 6:51 p.m. or 18:51 here in Kourou. No matter what clock you're using, we're coming up on under 12 minutes until liftoff. We're on time and we're on target for the launch. Our broadcast coming to you live, as always, from the Jupiter Mission Control building, which is the nerve center and the heart of the space base here. All the action about to get underway, so we hope you'll get settled and enjoy the ride. The green status panels you're going to see in a moment are a real-time summary of the different launch services provided by the base. We check them from time to time during the first part of the mission before lifting off, and everything is green, as you saw, as it should be. Ariane 5, as you know, the reliable workhorse vehicle and the senior member of the Ariane family, designed for heavier satellites and, like tonight's, for double launches. She first flew in 1996, and since she has become the standard bearer of Europe's space efforts. If you're not familiar with the Ariane 5 vehicle, there are two versions of her. This one we're using tonight stands 54 meters tall and is in two parts. They call them composites here. There's an upper composite and a lower one. The lower one including the main stage and the two boosters, and the upper composite consisting of the two satellites and the vehicle equipment bay, and the upper stage flies on a single engine. We'll be describing each of those in turn as it's functioning, and you can follow along. The two satellites, Intelsat in the upper berth is the heaviest, will be separated first. This is usually, not always, but usually the case. And BSAT in the lower position, due to be separated at plus 47 minutes and 14 seconds. Countdown proceeding smoothly. 10 minutes to go. till liftoff, Intelsat 37E and BSat 4A. Countdown, by the way, take a minute to mention it, is not just a simple 3, 2, 1 blastoff like you might think. Here in Jupiter, an enormous amount of information is flowing in from all points across the base, like the green status panels we just saw. And the teams in the Launch Control Center, where we'll go in a moment, are carrying out also an enormous amount of operations under rather difficult conditions and keeping to a very tight schedule. All that going on right now. We want to show some of the key players who make the mission happen. The Arianespace High Command, called the Flight Desk, heading up the team Luce Fabregat you saw, with her Roland Lager, the Chief Technical Officer. These people will make the call should anything unexpected come up. You might see them on the phones. We want to go to a brief presentation of the mission, some things to watch for. After liftoff, you will see the launcher climb vertically for 13 seconds, and then she will rotate east and head out over the Atlantic. The boosters will be separated at 2 minutes and 22 seconds after ignition. Then the fairing that protects the payload is jettisoned a minute later at an altitude of 111 kilometers, speed at this point already over 2 kilometers per second. At plus 9 minutes, the main stage is separated and splashes down into the Atlantic off the coast of Africa, and the upper stage takes over, powering the vehicle to the point where she can separate the satellites. She has reached her maximum speed, 9.3 kilometers per second. Intelsat 37E will be separated at plus 29 minutes and 48 seconds after liftoff. Then the Silda, which is the structure that allows us to carry a second passenger, is released, and the composite is then spun up to the position demanded by BSat. And finally, BSat 4A will be separated in its turn at plus 47 minutes after liftoff. Coming up on 8 minutes to the next to the last Ariane 5 launch of the year, the launcher waiting, like the rest of us, for her moment in the sun, and sunny is the word. The weather has been very good all week. No rain, no high altitude winds, nothing that can really stop us. We should have a fine launch with very good visibility. In fact, such good visibility that we're counting on the people watching on the beaches and on the ground will be able to see the booster separation unaided, and maybe even fairing separation, which doesn't happen every day. Launch window tonight, 33 minutes. Total mission time, 47 minutes. Pretty standard figures for an Ariane flight. Two other people you'll be seeing today, the dramatis personae. The mission director, Didier Saïd, working alongside the range operations manager, also called the DDO, Fleur Lefebvre, tonight. You'll be hearing her a lot. The DDO calls out all the key announcements on the major milestones before and during the flight, and she will shortly call out.
À tous de DDO, attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
Call out the 7-minute mark.
Top HDR au moins 7 minutes.
7-minute mark brings us into what's known as the synchronized or the automatic sequence. It's a key milestone and represents the final moments of the final countdown. This is a complex series of operations running right down to liftoff, gradually letting the launcher become autonomous. All right, our stage is set. I go back to my broadcast booth. Take a look at a short film on the launch campaign. You can see how Ariane 5 is put together for her mission, and we'll be back.
The final phase of the launch campaign, which started on 18th of July, is the structural integration of the launcher, followed by the electrical and pneumatic checkout on the launcher integration building. After technical exception, the launcher was transferred on its launch table to the final integration building on the 14th of August.
An Intelsat 37E arrived in French Guiana with an Antonov plane in Cayenne-Félix-Éboué Airport. The satellite equipment was installed in the S5C North building to begin its preparation phase. Later on, the satellite was transferred to the fueling S5B building, where the Boeing team proceeded to the filling of the tanks. BSat 4A arrived as well in French Guiana with an Antonov plane in Cayenne-Félix-Éboué Airport. BSat 4A was installed in the S5C South building and began its preparation phase. The satellite was then transferred to the fueling S5A building, where the SSL team proceeded to the filling of the tanks. The combined operations between satellites and launcher began at day -11 with the Intelsat 37E mating on the flight adapter. Then transferred to the final assembly building, the satellite was integrated on top of the CILDA and encapsulated by the fairing and Atlas mated on the upper part of the launch vehicle. On its side, BSAT-4A began the combined operation with launcher at D-9 in the S5A with flight adapter mating. After transfer to the BAF, BSAT-4A was mated on top of the launcher and covered by the upper composite.
The final preparations of the launcher for the flight, as well as the payload encapsulation and the integration of the launcher, were carried out. The pyrotechnic arming of the launcher was performed before the launch readiness review last Friday, which gave the authorization to transfer on the launch pad. Once the ground installations and the launcher are put into flight configuration, we shall conclude with the final chronology phase before liftoff. A special thank you goes to all the operational teams for their huge efforts and contribution to take us through this very smooth launch campaign so far.
Joshua Jampel back. A word on the launch campaign, just to add to the film. Every campaign is special because the people involved change with each one. They are faced with special anomalies and particular requirements. For the rest, however, the procedures are standard. Assembly of the launcher is pretty regular. The green status panels on the right, we mentioned them earlier. The activities here at the space base are represented here, the launcher and the satellites, but also the services, telemetry, radar, safety, weather, and the ground facilities. When all is ready, we go. We don't go before. These panels tell us about the readiness of all the main systems. Some 1,700 people are working around the space base in all. Our cameras are here in Jupiter, but many others are at work in many other sites across the range. Another busy place is the launch zone, where the launch management teams are at work under direction of the launch operations manager, Klaus Zell, you just saw. Right now, the two teams are working up there, one team responsible for the ground operations, the other for readiness of the Ariane 5 vehicle. The launch site operations manager heads up one group, and he coordinates with mission control for final authorization to launch. And when all the conditions are right, he then okays the automatic sequence at the 7-minute mark, which we saw a moment ago. In all, about 100 people hard at work just now in launch control, going over the final checks and the final verifications on all parts of Ariane's launch system. 2.5 minutes to go till the launch of the 95th Ariane 5 mission, the 9th launch of the year for Arianespace as we enter the latter half of 2017. Here in Jupiter, the VIPs and the invited guests in a moment will begin to make their ways outside to watch the liftoff. There are 2 terraces on either side of the building that give a fine view onto the pad. Ariane 5's flight path takes her from the pad, which is 15 kilometers to the west of us here in Jupiter. She flies right over us here in Jupiter. Get a great view. Great view now of the split-screen image showing the propellant feeder arms in the middle of the launcher, liquid hydrogen on the left, liquid oxygen on the right. They are putting propellant into the upper stage tanks. And you'll see these arms pull back at 7 seconds before ignition. It's one of the last things you'll see before liftoff. The camera will pan back and you'll see that. So we like to take a minute just to mention it. 1.5 minutes to go. All the tests, there are the people in the background you can see making their ways out to the terraces. All the tests and the campaigns to ready the launcher and the satellites are over. Everything that has had to be done has been done at this hour. All of Ariane's systems are ready as we approach
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
And the DDO once again will call out the 1-minute mark.
Top H0 moins 1 minute.
And we are into the final 60 seconds. Give us a chance to say hello to all our friends, to Intelsat out in McLean, Virginia, to our friends at BSAT in Tokyo, to the Boeing and the SSL teams in Los Angeles and Palo Alto, and locally to the Kourou, Sinnamary, and Cayenne sites, to our industrial partners also, the European Space Agency and the CNES, the French Space Agency, and to all of you following on the internet. We hope you're enjoying it. If you're not settled in, pull up a chair and enjoy the launch. We are going to cut away and we'll let you listen to the DDO. She will call out the final seconds. Watch for the cryo arms to open.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final.
Final countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. À tous de DDO, tir avorté.
Well, you saw the launcher did not leave the pad, and the DDO said tir avorté, which means an aborted launch. So it would appear that we have an aborted launch. The launcher and the 2 passengers are safe on board, however, not to worry. The teams at the Launch Control Center and all around the base are going to start looking into the problem and see what to do about it, see if we can launch tonight or if we can take another stab at another date. All that information will be forthcoming. I think in the meantime, we will cut away, suspend the program for the moment while we go get some information. If you just joined us, we went all the way down to H0, T0, and the engines lit up. All right, we'll be back as soon as we have some information.
À tous de DDO, abandon de la tentative du jour suite à un lancement avorté. Que tous les moyens restent activés pour une mise en configuration d'arrêt de la base de lancement.
Bien, mesdames, messieurs, donc comme vous avez pu le constater, le lancement n'a pas pu avoir lieu après l'allumage du Vulcain pour des raisons
As you saw, the launch did not take place.
aux caractéristiques attendues. Nous avons procédé à un arrêt.
There was a problem with the Vulcain engine, and we proceeded to an automatic stop of the launcher.
Sur la base pour les
There is no danger on the base, either for people or for infrastructure. The launch will not be able to take.
n'a pas pu avoir lieu après l'allumage du Vulcain pour des raisons
As you saw, the launch did not take place.
aux caractéristiques attendues. Nous avons procédé à un arrêt.
There was a problem with the Vulcain engine, and we proceeded to an automatic stop of the launcher.
Sur la base pour les
There is no danger on the base, either for.
n'a pas pu avoir lieu après l'allumage du Vulcain pour des raisons
As you saw, the launch did not take place.
aux caractéristiques attendues. Nous avons procédé à un arrêt.
There was a problem with the Vulcain engine, and we proceeded to an automatic stop of the launcher.
Sur la base pour les
There is no danger on the base, either for.
Comme vient de vous le dire Didier Fèvre, effectivement, nous avons eu un tir avorté.
As Didier Fèvre just told you, we had an aborted launch. Everything is fine. The launcher, the satellites are okay.
À toutes les investigations
We will be analyzing the problem
et préparer ce lancement le
to
plus rapidement possible.
be able to launch again as soon as possible. I would, of course, like to apologize to our customers for this delay.
Merci à BSAT et
Thank you
à son
to
constructeur
BSAT and SSL.
BSAT et à
Thank you to Intelsat and Boeing for their understanding.
et nous les assurons que nous allons revenir en vol et préparer ce lancement.
We will return to flight very soon, and we will be launching again as soon as possible. Thank you.
Well, you heard from Didier Fèvre, the head of the CSG.